got the answers. Jumping through hoops, looping.
Hello my friends, welcome back to another reading vlog. We are well into September at this point, so I do, in fact, need to get a start on my fall reading, and I figured, what better way to kick off the fall reading season than with fall's favorite genre, dark academia. If you are somehow unfamiliar with dark academia, it is a very, very popular genre slash aesthetic of books, movies, popular culture. Now, Google defines dark academia as an aesthetic and subculture that's centered on an idealized version of higher education, the arts, and literature. It's characterized by a gothic edge and traditional academic style that is often associated with nostalgia, vintage clothing, shadowy Greek and Gothic architecture, long study sessions, often at night, and by candlelight. Now, when I think of dark academia, I think of old architecture, libraries, gloomy fall weather, the fashion especially. I would love to be a part of the dark academia culture, solely to dress that way. However, I do not think I'm cut out for the lifestyle, because all of those fun little things I just mentioned are normally the background to a very cutthroat and intense storyline. There's always a school involved. There's usually a group of students committing seriously heinous acts while smoking cigarettes and doing things by candlelight. Now, the first thing I think of when I think of dark academia is in fact Harry Potter, and I do think that is a great example of the aesthetic if you want to get more of an idea of what I'm talking about. That's kind of where my experience ends with the genre. Of course, I am familiar with the genre as it is very popular. I see it talked about quite a lot. I would say I read a lot of dark academia adjacent books with touches and tinges of dark academia, but there is what I feel like is a very core staple group of books that are the face of the dark academia genre, and I haven't read any of them. So this reading vlog is officially going to be me reading some of the most popular and iconic dark academia books for the first time. Now, I am going to start with what I would say is the granddaddy of the dark academia genre. That would be none other than The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I am also going to be starting with this because I'm already halfway through it. Now, I do not usually do this, you know, read this much of a book and then start the reading vlog on it, but I was so unsure about how this book was going to go for me. I needed to make sure that I was going to get my footing with this and that I was fully ready to commit to it. So let's pause, rewind. We're going to go back to the mindset of when I first started this book. Hey guys, let's talk about the beginning of The Secret History. Also, before anyone mentions it, yes, this is the same exact sweatshirt I was wearing in my last video because I have been living in it. I have always been so insanely intimidated by this book. This binding, collection, grouping of words on paper scared me. Honestly, dark academia in general has always kind of intimidated me, and I think that is why I haven't read a lot of these books, but this one was the most intimidating to me. Of course, I've always known about it. I've always heard about it. You can't really go on TikTok and not see someone mention this book. This book is very polarizing. I feel like people either live and die by this book or they can't make it through. Now, I finally decided to give it a try because I saw people raving about the audiobook version of this. I am not an audiobook girly at all. I tried one time. Just in general, I can't pay attention to them. The narrator was reading too slow. I didn't like the voices he was doing, and it turned me off of audiobooks. However, Donna Tartt herself narrates the audiobook version of this, and people absolutely eat it up. I decided to give it a listen. I listened to about the first 20 pages of it while I was reading the Goodreads sample. You know how Goodreads sometimes provides samples of books? I was clicking through it on my phone, and I realized, hey, I'm kind of having an enjoyable experience right now. And my intimidation levels were going down by the second. Now here we are, 248 pages in. Let's talk about it. I want to say as little about the plot as I can because people do say you should go into this blind. Again, I think that's another intimidation factor for me when I see reviews of books and people say to go in blind and go in knowing completely nothing about a book. That's not the way I live my life. I cannot go blindly into anything I need to know the details. So this is about a group of students studying ancient Greek at a small college in Vermont. This is told from the point of view of our main character named Richard, who is new to this otherwise very elusive and mysterious group of students. He is recounting to the reader, me, you, us, his experience with these students after the fact, many years after they have taken place. There is one certain thing that happens with this group that you find out very early on. You find the first sentence of the book. The first sentence of the book lays out one major, big, significant event that does take place in this book. So we are reading how they've come up to this point. Basically, someone dies and this group of students does have something to do with it. And again, I don't really think that's a spoiler because it is quite literally the first line of the book. Maybe for you crazies who like to go into books completely blind, I'm sorry, but this is also an extremely popular book. If you haven't heard the first line of this book as a TikTok sound by now, maybe you're just on TikTok less than I am. Now, this book is dense. In every sense of the word. But Donna Tartt strings words together like something I've never seen before. Like, her writing is just full. And that is like the simplest way I can put it. It is very poetic. It is very atmospheric. I feel like I am here. I feel like I'm at this small college in Vermont with the crunchy leaves and the gloomy weather and the nefarious activities. My vocabulary is also going to be robust by the time I'm done with this book. I am finding so many new words in here, and I took AP English. My vocabulary is fine. It's substantial. I am doing a little bit of annotating. I'm just underlining quotes that I like, and then I'm also circling those new words to me and then going back and defining them. There is just a lot to digest with this book, but I'm into it and I'm having fun with it. The audiobook 100% got me through the start of this book. I don't think I would be as into it as I am right now if I hadn't gotten started with the audiobook, because Donna Tartt's voice is truly something special to behold. I do walk around my house quoting lines from this book in her voice to myself, and I probably sound insane, but her voice has become one with my inner monologue. Also, with the audiobook, you get to read it exactly how it was intended to be read because the author herself is narrating this. Okay, I had to change how I was sitting because I was sitting on my feet and now they're numb. So down here now. Back to the secret history. Like I said, currently 248 pages into this, which is it halfway? Let's find out. $280 pages. So I am almost exactly halfway through this book. Like I said, I'm loving it. Bunny is an absolute menace to these other characters, and I do kind of love it. I get a good chuckle out of it, just how chaotic his actions are. However, I probably also would have killed Bunny with a hammer 100 pages ago. He is awful, but he's hilarious to me. We're gonna continue reading this. I am very excited because I also see a lot of people say that they could read this for the first time again, that they're jealous of people who have never read it before. So I know we didn't go through the beginning of this book together, but we will get through the end.
Only there on weekends, just looking for a reason to remember the song. So we'll stay a while, moving to the music. I can see you smile, thinking that I've lost my mind, and you're the reason why. Don't look down, 'cause both our feet have left the ground. Don't look down, we're dancing over shrinking towns. She said, just meet me here at sunset. Got a look inside her eyes, a glimpse above the skies. It could be the reason why. So we'll stay a while, moving to the music. I can see you smile, thinking that I've lost my mind, and you're the reason why. Don't look down, dancing over shrinking towns. Whoa, oh, whoa.
Are those too loud? Obviously, I am outside, as I have been outside reading all morning. I am up to page 438 of this. I have this much to go. Hopefully you can hear me okay over these wind chimes. I have no urge to be inside right now. It's not even that nice of a day. Like, it's pretty cloudy, but it is like perfect peak fall weather. It's not too hot. I can sit out here. There's a breeze. I can wear a sweatshirt, cute cozy blanket. My goal is to sit here in this spot and finish this today. I have about like 100-ish pages left, so I do think I can do it. I do want to read the ending of this with you guys because from what I've seen, this last little bit of the book might get a little crazy. I might be making that up. I'm also very excited to finish this and then go back and watch all of the TikToks that I've bookmarked because they looked like good TikToks, but I didn't want to spoil it for myself. So
Over shrinking towns. Whoa, oh, whoa. We're dancing over shrinking towns. Don't look down, 'cause both our feet have left the ground. Don't look down, we're dancing over shrinking towns.
There's something I need to tell you.
what just happened? I have been sitting up straight reading this book for the past like 15 pages. Just, that's how you know it's tense. Is that focused at all? The epilogue. I'm on the epilogue. I'm sweating. I'm sweating right now.
What the fuck, Richard?
That's how we're feeling. That's how we're feeling upon finishing this. I did in fact finish The Secret History last night, and I do not feel like I just read a book. I feel like I have lived 3 different lifetimes. Like I have hiked Mount Everest. Finishing this book felt like I was putting my body through some sort of physical exertion, and all I did was sit in this chair. Stationary. Also, if you're wondering what this little thing is, I did just get a new tattoo. I got 2 actually, but this still has like the Sanoderm second skin on it. So this is also not what the tattoo looks like. Just ignore. Any thoughts or feelings I have about this book at this current point in time are all going to be very rudimentary, because I feel like this is 100% the type of book where you finish it, but then you continually think about it, and then months later you realize how you actually felt about it. Also, all of the things I'm about to say are normally things I would say when I'm giving reasons for why I disliked a book. It was dense. It was extremely slow paced. It was wordy. There's lots of rambling about different things that don't necessarily have anything to do with the seemingly simple plot, because the plot of this book is really not complex. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. I would normally dislike everything about this writing style, but Donna Tartt just does something. I do understand why it is one of the hallmarks of the dark academia genre. The atmosphere is there. The intensity is there. Some of these moments towards the end of the book were so tense. Like you saw, I had to read them sitting up straight. These characters feel so real. Like, these characters are real to me. I also feel like you could read this from each of their points of view and get an entirely different book every time you read it. And I would love to do that. I would love to reread this book in the 5 different points of view that were in it, especially Bunny. I would love to be in Bunny's head because he, like I said, menace behavior. As for the ending, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting that ending. I would say to enjoy this, you definitely have to be ready for it, and I was ready for it. I was ready to finally take this on. This is not some light read that you kind of just decide to pick up on a whim. This is a book that you prepare for. This is a book that you strap in for. I feel like you have to know what you're getting into with this. Not necessarily story / content wise, just the way that the book is written. It still just feels like there's so much more thought that I need to put towards this book. Like, I need to ruminate on this for a good while. Like, normally I would not pick up another dense, nearly 500-page book. After this, I would want some mindless sort of palate cleanser, because I feel like I have not devoted the proper time to this book. Even though I've read every single page, I've read it cover to cover, I still feel like it's not done with me. Also, the diehards might light me on fire for this one, but I could not help but picture Richard, our main character, our narrator, as Barry Keoghan in Saltburn, because their characters are very similar. And I don't want to say that this reminded me of Saltburn, because obviously I know that like this was the blueprint for a lot of those types of things, but I saw Saltburn before I read this. Please don't get mad at me for drawing that comparison. Also, Julian, in my head, the way I pictured Julian, I pictured him as the old man who repairs Woody in Toy Story, if you know who I'm referring to. This guy. That's Julian to me. If you guys have read this book, which I'm sure there are very many of you, please comment so we can talk about it. And if you want to start it, but you're feeling a little bit intimidated, like I was, start with the audiobook, read it with the audiobook, and also look up like the aesthetic on Pinterest so you really get the vibe, you really understand what's going on here. And I am here, I'm a testament to tell you that this was a success. And it was not the scary, intimidating monster that I thought it was going to be. Those are going to be my thoughts for now on this. There might be more by the end of this video because, like I said, I'm still thinking about it. But now we need to move on to our next read, which you will see in one short second. So as you have seen by now, our next read of the video is in fact Babel by R.F. Kuang. I've just gotten to part 2 in the book, which is about 100 pages in, and if you can't see, this is how it's going so far. We're marked up. Now, I have actually had this book on my shelves for quite a while because I do already know that I like R.F. Kuang as a writer. I read Yellowface by her. I absolutely loved The Poppy Wars by her. And after I finished those two, I automatically bought this without even really knowing what it was about. But I would say this is like the next most popular dark academia book behind The Secret History, or at least it's the one that I see recommended most often, and so I knew that this was the perfect video for me to finally read this in. Based off the synopsis and, of course, the 100 pages of the book that I've read, this is set in the early to mid 1800s at a fictionalized version of Oxford University in London. This starts off with our main character. His name is Robin, and he is orphaned by disease at a very young age. And this starts out with him being taken from his home in China by a mysterious white British man who is also supposedly a professor. He takes him back to London where he starts tutoring him in like ancient Greek, Latin. He's basically being groomed to become a scholar at Oxford University, specifically in their Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. This is also a bit of fantasy, which I was not expecting, or I didn't know that there was fantasy involved in this. Silver is basically a magical element. It can be used for all different types of things. It can cure sickness, it can cleanse, it amplifies. Silver lining the canals made the water fresher and cleaner. Silver in the gutters disguised the stink of rain, sludge, and sewage with the scent of invisible roses. Silver in the clock towers made the bells chime for miles and miles further than they should have, etc. And then what we learn about London at this point, London had accumulated the lion's share of both the world's silver ore in the world's languages. And the result was a city that was bigger, heavier, faster, and brighter than nature allowed. So, silver is obviously very valuable, and it is also obviously hoarded by the upper class. Clearly, I'm off to a good start with this one. I know I like a book when I go into it with literally zero intention to do any annotations, and then as I'm reading it, I just feel the compulsion to do so, which I don't know why I expected anything else, because I already know that I like R.F. Kuang's writing. So I think my favorite thing right now is the magic system, how she set it up, how she has explained the magic of the silver bars works. I'm not going to go in depth and explain how it all works, but she does tie it back to language and translation. It's just so interesting and it's so unique, and she does it in a way where like I want to know more about it. I want to keep learning about it, because I know getting into a new magic system and the beginning of world building can a lot of times be very confusing. But not with this. That is not how I'm feeling with this one. Those are my initial thoughts right now. I know I obviously haven't gotten to the main plot of the book yet, because on the back it does say that Britain pursues an unjust war with China over silver and opium. So I am looking forward to seeing how this progresses. But I'm also enjoying where I'm at right now with it, which seems like the formula for a good book.
A force makes the flowers grow. It helps us grow too. You know, you contain it.
So it has been a good couple of days since I've updated you guys on this. I've still been reading this entire time, but I've been reading very slowly. I've just got to book 4, so that means I have read this entire chunk without giving you guys any update. And I do feel like at some point this chunk got a bit repetitive for me, so that's what was slowing me down. For the majority of that like 250-ish page chunk, it did feel like not a whole lot was happening. I mean, yes, of course, there was stuff here and there. There were some important parts. For the most part, it did feel like the characters were kind of going through the same thing page after page, and I was really having to wade through it for a second. The writing itself is still amazing. I do still very heavily enjoy R.F. Kuang's writing. It was just the pacing there, and because of that, I was only reading like 15, 20 pages at a time, and then I would put it back down. However, something very big has just happened. So I'm really hoping that the pacing and the progress of the story is going to start to pick up, because I'm in the back half of the book. So if it doesn't, then this might not be a hit for me. Also, I don't know why I was expecting any different, but this is a lot darker and heavier than I expected. And I'm about to make myself sound like an idiot, because that's completely on me. Because yes, this is a book about colonization. This is a book about colonization and exploitation. So operating on that fact alone should have been the alarm bell. Hey, there's going to be some pretty heavy stuff in this book. But there are some very heavy instances of racism in this book. And R.F. Kuang is just not afraid to slap you in the face with that kind of stuff. I think that is part of her goal in writing about these topics. When her characters experience racism, she does it in such a jarring way where it's meant to make the reader uncomfortable, because it should. I guess that is all just a very long-winded way for me to say, check the trigger warnings. Check them. And again, I understand that is all my fault. I should have been prepared for that. I should have expected that, especially because that is the exact same way that I felt reading The Poppy War. She lays it all out there for you. But I am going to try and get this finished so we can move on to our next read. I do have about 200-ish pages left. Fingers crossed that this picks up.
My love, you're not alone. Just know it helps you listen to its call. Let go. Let go. Let go.
I just read the last chapter of this. There's still an epilogue that I have to read, but I think that is one of the most tragically beautiful endings that I've ever read. I'm gonna need a moment to process this one before I can come back and talk about it. It was so beautiful.
Leaves fall in their peaceful dance. You contain it all, my love. You're not alone. Just know it helps you listen to its call.
R.F. Kuang is a literary genius. I am truly convinced she is one of the best contemporary authors that we have right now, and as years pass, as time goes on, she will go down in history as one of the best authors of our time. I am still truly at a loss for words over that ending. That was such a beautifully devastating experience. While I was reading, I was listening to this song. If you have already read this book, or if you are planning on reading this book, either go back and reread the last 4 pages of this book while listening to that song, or make a note to do so and then report back to me on your experience. I still feel like I haven't even really coherently organized my thoughts on this one. There was a good hot minute where I was actually not feeling too hopeful about this. The pacing in the middle of this book really is the only setback for me. The beginning was great, the ending was great, the middle was definitely a drag. Before I obviously got to the ending and know how this pans out, I was really questioning how this was supposed to be a standalone, because for a vast majority of this book, it felt like it was all a build-up for another book, even though I knew that it was a standalone. I think there was a lot of build-up that we didn't necessarily need. Like I said, for that good chunk, it felt like the characters were doing the same exact thing page after page after page, and these certain plot points that I was kind of expecting, like finally getting into this war, or them finally really becoming a part of the secret society, it felt like those things were just not coming, and in all honesty, they never really did come. But once I was able to push through all of that and get to the ending, the structure of the book does make sense. Like, this is not meant to be some epic fantasy action book where these scholars turn into warriors and they go off and fight this war. That is not what happens. I also think it is such an injustice that this book is so widely ever known as just dark academia, because I feel like that takes away so much of what it actually is about. This is the preface to a war. This is about the politics, heavy on the politics, the injustice and the corruption of a society that is built upon the assets of foreign countries. This was definitely about the main character learning about all the corruption and really his internal struggle about whether or not to remain complicit in this system that he does somewhat benefit from, even though he is being very widely exploited for the sake of this system. Like, this was the politics of a revolution instead of the action of a revolution. The action did very much come at the end. It was just not in the way that I was expecting, which I'm not going to say anything about that because I don't want to spoil anything. The pacing really is my only critique. I think that this just cemented my admiration for R.F. Kuang that much more. I truly think she is one of the most talented authors we have right now. So much of this stuff is also so relevant to certain things in society that we have going on today. And if you are a person who looks like me, I think you should read this book. I'm just never going to forget the experience of reading that ending. I think, said Rami, it's because when I speak, you listen. That was the twist right there. That was the twist of the knife right there. The knife was already in, and she just had to, just a little bit. Just a little bit. For our last book of the video, I've really gone back and forth over what I should read. I had a couple different options. I was going to read These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. I was going to read that. However, I read probably the first 40-ish pages and it wasn't really catching my attention. So I think I'm going to go with one of my other choices, which we do have to run to the store and go get. But once you see what it is, I will explain why I was kind of hesitant to go with this one. But to give you a hint, I've decided to go with the big 3. You'll see in a second.
Jimmy loves to pet his dog, and he loves to hug his mom, hug his mom. Jimmy loves to walk his dog, Jimmy loves his big black dog, his big black dog.
Okay, we are back, and I gotta be quick because it is starting to get dark out, but I have acquired our last read, which is obviously If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. In my opinion, this rounds out the big three. This rounds out the big three of the dark academia genre. This, Babel, and The Secret History are the ones that I see talked about the most often. Now, I honestly thought I was never going to read this book because I hate Shakespeare. I want nothing to do with him in my adult life. I do always say that if I could go back in history and kill one historical figure without any consequence, and it can't be Hitler, I'm going with Shakespeare. And I don't care how counterintuitive it may seem that I love to read, and then Shakespeare is known as like the father of English literature or whatever they call him. I don't care. He's my enemy. But if you don't know, this book has a lot of Shakespearean elements because it is about a group of students studying Shakespeare. So, what's in the book? Shakespeare. I knew that about this book, so I immediately decided that I was never going to read it. But here I am. I'm doing this for this video. Like I said, this is about a group of students studying Shakespeare at a small liberal arts college. And we know something very bad happens because it lands one of the students in jail, and it is now 10 years after the fact, and he is relaying the story to us. So already right off the bat, very similar vibes to The Secret History. I guess at the end of this, I can also pick my favorite. And which one, if you haven't already read any of these wildly popular books, which one I would recommend. I'm going to be trying very hard not to let my own personal bias of hating Shakespeare overshadow my feelings towards this book. I'm going to try very hard to look past that. However, if I do end up liking this book despite Shakespeare, then I will know that this is actually good. Also, in the checkout line, the girl got me. She saw that I was buying this and she said, hey, we have a monthly pick also by this author. Apparently this is M.L. Rio's new novella, and she said, I'll let you try it for half off. I said, okay. I was already basically getting this for free because I had like $15 in rewards, so I said sure. I don't know, it looks spooky. Hopefully I like M.L. Rio because I'm double stacked up. Not the point right now. It is officially time to start our last read of the video. This is already a much quicker read than the other two. I only started this last night and I am already 120 pages into this. So I guess that means I also like it so far. I don't want to only talk about this in relation to The Secret History and Babel, but that is also what I'm gonna do here for a second. This one already just feels so much more digestible than the other two. The other two were very dense. They took a lot of work to get through, and that is not me saying that those other two are better than this one for that reason, or vice versa. Different books just do different things. What a statement. That is so intelligent of me. But that's my observation that I have for right now. This one already feels so much more palatable. It is moving at a much quicker pace than the other two. All of that like fall dark academia imagery is there. They just did a play on Halloween night, so that was fun. Loved that. As for the amount of Shakespeare in this, it is definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be. They do quote him quite a bit, and obviously they are doing his plays, but like obviously the quotes have to do with what's going on in the book. Duh. And I can still understand what they're talking about. I'm sure if I was like a Shakespeare girly and I truly studied his works, then I'm sure those quotes would feel much more meaningful to me. But as of right now, I'm kind of just like, all right. And I'm moving on. So far so good. I am enjoying it quite a bit more than I initially thought I would, so that's exciting. Definitely seeing the inspiration and parallels to The Secret History. The basic plotline story is more or less the same. They're a friend group. One of their friends kind of sucks. You kind of hate him. And you know something bad's probably gonna happen. So that's where we're at right now. I do think I will have this finished relatively soon. So.
He's drinking out the bottle when I see him at night. Every time I see him, it just doesn't feel right. How are you? broken into. Clear water flowing by the waterfall, way back on the other side of school in the fall. And I knew something was with you, my friend. We would walk and laugh along. He would say that we're just rocks in a creek. I said if the trees could talk, they would say don't cut me down, don't cut him down. But there is murky water flowing by the waterfall. Saw it in his eyes as he stood in shock. And oh, too, something was with you. He was always having trouble falling in love. Couldn't really nail it, always kinda rolled along. It's true. Jimmy loved his big black dog, and he took him for a walk.
What? His friends did not deserve that. His friends did not deserve for him to do that for them. At all. Why did he do that?
Jimmy loved his big black dog, and he took him for a walk.
We are back. We are finished. And we don't know quite what to feel right now. I do want to first and foremost acknowledge the fact that I read all 3 of these books back to back, and I am feeling somewhat mentally exhausted. And my thoughts and feelings right now may be somewhat affected by that. I think I am having slightly mixed feelings about this. For example, I do so highly appreciate the pacing of this book, but it did feel very surface level to me the entire time. If I had read this book on its own, you know, not following these 2, I think I would have been left feeling unsatisfied. I would have been left feeling like I needed more. However, having read it on the back of these 2, I'm like, yes, thank you. I feel like this needed to be a tiny bit more fleshed out than it was. And maybe I'm being hypocritical because, yes, of course, you do have to sacrifice some of the detail, some of the fleshing out in order to keep the pace. Do not ask me to differentiate the male characters in this book. Actually, do not ask me to name all 7 of the friends. I don't think I could do that. I also don't think there needed to be 7. Also, in my humble opinion, I do not feel like the friends did absolutely anything. They did not do anything to deserve the way that that man rode for them. And that's as much as I can say without spoiling anything. Maybe I would feel differently about that if their relationships were a tad bit more fleshed out. So there were such interesting dynamics that were slightly touched upon, but we never got into them. And I feel like it is those little tidbits that I would have been very interested in. The ending. The ending, and by the ending, I mean the last line of the book, kind of ruined everything for me. Not in a bad way, in a way where it is now all that I'm thinking about. Now that's what I want to read about. That's what I want more of. The very last line of the book. I did really like the writing. There were some very beautiful quotes in this. I know I didn't annotate or tab anything, but after doing this, I was a little burnt out. I needed to be able to just sit and look at the words. But this is definitely like poster child, dark academia, all of the descriptions about the weather and the setting and the books and the candles. It was all there. Oh, Shakespeare. Do you necessarily need to be a Shakespeare fan to read and understand and enjoy this book? No. But I'm sure it helps. Like I said, I'm a hater. I'm a Shakespeare hater, and I am working off all of the knowledge I have of Shakespeare from my high school English classes. We read Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, I think Julius Caesar, I don't know, but I vaguely understand each of those. I vaguely remember them. But if on the other hand you love Shakespeare and you know all of those plays very well, then I'm sure that you would probably connect with this a little bit better than I did. Despite that fact though, I was still able to enjoy this without that love for Shakespeare. Wow, I feel like I've just been initiated into something. I can say I am definitely a fan of this subgenre, and I do fully understand why it is the genre of fall. This is such a fun aesthetic and feel to escape into, even though there is murder in it. But like this whole aesthetic paired with this high stakes dark intensity is exactly what I love to read about. So again, I don't know why it took me so long to finally get into all this. But if you are looking to get into dark academia or any of these books, but you feel intimidated, you don't know where to start, even though this is definitely the blueprint, I think I would start with If We Were Villains. For The Secret History and Babel, I feel like these are two books that you really need to be prepared for. Fully committed, fully prepared for the undertaking that is these two books. This book, fast-paced, it's a good little snack. It's a bite, it's a treat, a good one. These two, full meals, full like Thanksgiving meals that make you want to lie down and take a nap afterwards. I also think the concept of a main character who is kind of ambiguous and on the sidelines and is being used to tell the story of the other characters in the book, I think that's very interesting. And I think it's very interesting that we see it a lot in dark academia. I honestly don't know if I can pick a favorite. Actually, no, I do. It's A Secret History. I feel like this one has left the biggest bruise on me, and that's the best way I can put it right now. Like, I am going to be continually thinking about this book more so than these other two. I also do feel extremely cool now that I've read all three of these. But this is officially the end of this reading vlog. I can finally say that I read the big three of the dark academia genre. I can also say that all of this does get my stamp of approval. The dark academia genre, these three books specifically, it was successful. I am a fan. I know you guys have read these books, so let's talk about them. Let me know which one of these three is your favorite. If you have any other recommendations based on these three, let me hear them. But that is all for this one. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you decide to stick around, and I'll see you in the next one.